No other questions, no other discussion, we're going to move on. Okay, next item on the agenda is budget amendments. This was an area that I had requested because there's been some discussion in previous board meetings about budget amendments and our need to do budget amendments. In reviewing the budget, I see that there is potentially one amendment as far as a overage, and that is in the specific line item for legal fees. Other than that, we will be reporting budget amendment depending upon how we want to go forward to bring money back into the Treasury. We have, even with our additional expense for attorney fees are coming in under budget, and we can potentially return that money to the Treasury, which may in this case be $200,000 or better, or we may choose to designate those funds for purchases in 2013, either on an ongoing basis or on a capital improvement basis. So I did check, and it is in your packet, with Lee Turno, an attorney with the Wisconsin Towns Association. I've also checked with Renee. I've also read the documentation that Mr. Marek provided, which is, of course, the work that we work from, the state statutes and our own budget. Item in finance 13.3.1.3, and it's very clear. I mean, if everybody's read it, section 65.9 specifically states that towns post in 3 places. This is related to the posting issue that Mr. Marek brought up. We don't publish required by statute. No, we do it as an abundance of caution. For budget amendments, as he's indicated, they have no prescribed timeline in the statute. Because such a notion is impossible in practice anyway. I'm reading from his email. Any properly noticed town board meeting by a 2/3 vote of the body can amend the town budget. They can and should do so as needed and or desired, and there's no legal limitation on the practice otherwise. We here at the town board, during the years 2011 and 2012, which we take full responsibility for because we were here during that time, have returned money to the Treasury. We have not overspent, and the only line item that I'm aware of in 2011 and 2012 is the legal fees. We've certainly discussed the legal fees, and because of that, any budget amendments that take place for overages will be limited to the legal fees, but we will be putting through budget amendments once we know what they are for those line items that are under budget. In speaking both to the attorney and to the auditor, their suggestion is that we wait until we have our invoices in so that all items for 2012 can be accounted for, so that when we do our budget amendments, they are accurate and they reflect accurate information as to what wasn't spent in 2012, and those monies then accounted for in either movement of segregation into the general fund or for other uses in 2013 or otherwise. So both of these items are areas that the chairperson recommends. I have sought counsel from both the Wisconsin Towns Association, legal department, and from our audit firm, and I've gotten the same response in both cases. This is also in reviewing other budget amendment documents through the Clerks Association, also what we're finding in practice in other communities. So I feel comfortable and confident that we are working appropriately.
Chair, I went one step further in contacting you also, and made him aware that the town has ordinances of our own, and he said that we must follow our ordinances by law.
Of course. And our town fund ordinance says no money shall be drawn from the treasury of the town, nor shall any obligation for the expenditure of money be incurred except in the pursuance of the annual appropriation of the adopted budget, or when changed as authorized in section 3-1-3. At the close of each fiscal year, any unencumbered balance of any appropriation shall revert to the general fund and shall be subject to reappropriation, but appropriations may be made by the board to be paid out of the income of the current year in furtherance of improvements or other objects or works which would not be completed. So even our own The document indicates that it will be at the end of the fiscal year, and that's where we're at. So I will be preparing, once we have all of our expenses in for 2012, which we hope to be close to the end of this month. We have requested from all of our service providers that they provide us documentation through and including 12/31 as quickly as possible, so those can be in the appropriate budget year. And as soon as those are in, we will prepare budget amendment for your review and approval. And I anticipate that will be probably early February at this point. So.
What do we plan on doing with 2010 and 2011's budget? There were no amendments made to those two, and we have not transferred from the budget to the general fund.
We made capital changes in both of those years, Mr. German, which you were aware of and part of. So, but we will ask the auditor to go back, and if there are amendments in those years that need to be done, we will take care of that as well. Keep in mind when we walked in here, we couldn't run a financial statement at all. There was no capacity to do that, so we are moving forward from an area where we did not have the ability to even provide accurate current information to our constituents or work from ourselves. So I think, to be honest, we've come a long way. We have information available to us that wasn't available before in real time. And I think it isn't fair to the work that's been done by the clerk's office to have up-to-date current information and an understanding of every dollar that comes in and goes out of this, I'm going to say business, because I do believe that a government should be run like a business. You know, Mr. Do you think it's appropriate to make faces at me? I mean, go ahead, but really?
I don't think it's appropriate for you to sit on your chair and lie about what our town ordinances and the state statutes say. You are a liar, ma'am. I am calling you out as you are. Our town ordinance clearly states you cannot spend any of our money, until those men up on that board appropriate it.
Every single bill. Yes. I mean, if you continue, Mr. Mayor, if you continue to be disruptive.
You called me out. I didn't call you out.
Mr. Merrick, you are being disruptive. I'm asking you to stop.
You called me out.
Yes, I called you out because you were being disruptive.
Point of order. May I have the floor, please?
No, I am talking at the moment.
May I speak after you're finished, please?
Of course. Mr. Merrick, it's not appropriate for you to be disingenuous here. It's not appropriate for you to mock this area. If you choose to do so, I'm going to have to ask you to leave. You were asked to leave at the last meeting. I did enforce that because I thought maybe it was a one-time thing. But if this is the way it's going to be, I mean, we don't conduct ourselves that way here at the town of Waukesha.
You called me out. I answered you. You called me out. I answered you. You asked me a question. I answered you.
No, Mr. Merrick, I asked you to stop making faces at me
No,
and stop
ma'am,
calling
you
me a liar.
You asked me if it was appropriate.
Mr.
Play back
Merrick.
your tape, please.
Mr. Merrick,
No,
please.
you asked me a question.
Do I need to have the deputy called?
As you choose.
Well, we'll prepare for that at the next
If you
meeting.
called me out, I answered your question.
Mr. Merrick, stop, please. Any other comments? Mr. Fisher, you wanted to comment?
Yeah, two things. I guess some of the discussion of this will be for another day. I will simply tell you that I will listen very carefully, but I am not inclined at all to go back into 2010 and 2011 and try to open those budgets up. Somebody's going to have to make an awful persuasive argument to me for a reason to do that. Those have been audited, they've been completed. I have two other concerns. I did ask, as you're well aware, last week, Wednesday, and I expressed a desire to Clerk Treasurer Salentine to have an opportunity to sit down with Renee Messing to ask her lots of accounting and auditing questions. She suggested that I pose that question to you following the DPW meeting a week ago yesterday, and I indicated I was more than welcome to have that be a public meeting, and any other board member or members who wanted to be present could do that. And I indicated desire to do that last week or this week. You basically told Jamie to find out about Renee's availability and notice it as an informational meeting that any person could come and attend for 10 o'clock yesterday following the DPW meeting. I followed up with Jamie on Thursday to find out whether she was able to put that meeting in place and contact Renee Messing, and she told me no. Well, she said, yes, Renee will be here on Thursday, meaning today. And I said, no, we're talking about Wednesday. She said that Renee was going to be at the meeting tonight. So in terms of, I'm being disingenuous a bit, that I mean, we can do all of this stuff in this forum if you want on the 24th, but I've got pools of questions that I would like to be able to ask. So I feel a little bit, I don't even know the right word, put off, I guess. I asked for the opportunity to do it, to get some information, been denied with that, so I don't know what to make of that. Is Renee Messing going to be here on the 24th, and do you want us to spend oodles of time asking her questions, or what's your pleasure on that as the chair?
My understanding that your big desire was to be sure that we were handling budget amendments correctly. Is that incorrect?
No, that's not accurate at all. I have oodles of questions that I would like to ask her, and what I said is rather than, I guess I would have the right to call her on the telephone and spend a bunch of time with her on the telephone, then the rest of my fellow board members aren't privy to that. I should try to translate that and get into an argument about it. I thought it would be productive simply to have her here, do it in an organized manner, and ask her the questions for some understanding. So my questions are pretty far and wide in terms of some of the things I'd like to be able to ask her.
Mr. Fisher, actually how it went is you wanted to have a private conversation with her, and I said, no, I didn't think that was appropriate. If we were going to engage her...
Absolutely untrue.
That is absolutely true.
It is absolutely untrue. I said I would like to be able to meet with her, do it in public, and let any member of this board and any person in the public attend. I said I want it to be public.
Well, Mr. Fisher, you haven't even asked us any questions, and Renee Messing is the top auditor at Clifton at $250 an hour. Do you think you could perhaps prepare your questions that perhaps our staff can handle at zero cost before we engage her?
I'm not confident that our staff can answer the questions that I want to ask her.
Well, I would suggest that you prepare your questions, and we can evaluate those as a group, and those that we need to engage our, vendor for, we can. But there are also many resources, like the Wisconsin Towns Association, which we pay a fee for, that provides services free of charge. I think those are areas that we should talk about first. You have never asked a question of us. Perhaps you could share with us your concern and your questions in a written form, and Renee could actually answer those questions for us. But to just have a conversation without knowing what the basis of the questions are, I mean, we have audited statements here at the town of Waukesha. Audited statements. It doesn't get any higher level than that. We pay good money to do it, and now you guys want to pick apart our financial statements as well? Are you also CPAs? I don't understand the scrutiny. Why don't you prepare a list of questions? And if we can't answer them for you, then we will engage whatever resources we need to get them.
Who is we? Who is we?
Who is we? The office staff tries to prepare and do the work of the town. You gentlemen aren't in the office day to day. We have competent staff there that does work every day.
But any of them are CPAs or anybody on this board?
Is your question a CPA?
It may very well be.
Well, why don't we see it so we can find out?
All right, fine. If you don't want to have the opportunity to ask and answer those questions, there's not much I can do about it. I've got one other thing I guess I'd like to add if you want to shut the lights down for a moment again.
Mr. Dan's getting it. Brian, Dan's getting it, as he did before.
I have a request, I sent this over to Jamie earlier today. I would hope that you would not preclude this from going on to the agenda. And it's my request for the meeting on the 24th. I'll read it. Please put the following item on the agenda for the regular meeting of the town board on Thursday, January 24th, under new business. Recommendations for new procedures to guard against exceeding budgetary limits when authorizing and paying bills and dispersing funds. May I expect to see that on the agenda? May I expect to see that on the agenda in 2 weeks?
Do you have a recommendation?
May I expect to see that on the agenda in 2 weeks? Yes, I have some recommendations. And they're not in order this time. May I expect to see that on the agenda? Yes,
If you ask me 3 more times and I don't give me a chance to answer, I still won't be able to answer.
You have an opportunity to answer.
Well, if you allow it, yes, I guess
I
that's,
will.
well, thank you.
I'm all ears.
I thank you. You are recommending new procedures to us up and above what our auditors have prepared?
My question is whether you will put this on the agenda.
And in order to answer your question, I need to get an answer. What is your purpose? I mean, what are you proposing CPA guidelines?
I didn't say that.
Then what are you asking
Read what
for?
it says. All right, I'm not going to go any further. You can refuse to put it on the agenda, fine.
Mr. Fisher, you do not have the right simply to put items on the agenda that you can't even explain. What is it that you are looking for us to accomplish? Are you preparing a proposal?
I cannot explain it at this meeting because it's not on the agenda.
You have an opportunity on the agenda under referrals and concerns. You also, Mr. Fisher, statute.
I'll pick it up under referrals and concerns and I'll tell you where I'm going, okay? Or do you want it now? Your choice.
You statutorily.
Your choice.
Well, let me finish. Statutorily, any member of the board can at any time in a break in the proceedings ask for something to be added to the agenda. So please give us what else you'd like to say
I'll
on
be
it.
happy to give it to you. One of the recommendations that I've got is when we get, and we can go through it when we're going to payment of the bills, I want to see, we get a summary here that basically has the payee, the date of the bill, the account that it goes to, and the amount. I want to know, when we get these for approval and consideration, what budget year they're being put in. That's one of my recommendations.
That is already on that document, Mr. Fisher.
It is not.
It is on the
here.
document.
It is not. Show me where it is on here. That it
Look
says
at your
2012 or,
Look
it
at your,
doesn't say 2012 or 2013 budget.
Mr.
We can get
Fisher.
into that. I will ask you that specifically. It does not say, Angie.
Mr. Fisher, when we put into the accounts payable module of QuickBooks the invoice date, the year of that invoice determines what year it's in. You have the date in the first line item for each and every invoice on these 3 pages. So you can easily go through and see what is in 2012 and what is in 2013. We went through these line by line, bill by bill. It is also noted on each and every bill in your packet as to what budget year they're in.
It
So
absolutely is not. You can pull them out and I will show them to you.
please pull one out. Go
You
ahead.
get 'em.
You
get
get
'em. I
them.
know
You have
where
the
they are.
question. I can tell you confidently where they are. You go ahead and bring
You
out
go
what
get them,
you...
bring them out, and I'll pull them out for you. You show me.
You have a concern about any of them, you may
They
show
do
me.
not say. The fire department ones that Chief Buckholz does, to his credit, most of them say 2012 or 2013 budget. The ones other than the fire department do not say what budget that money is being withdrawn from. They do
Because,
not.
Mr. Fisher, a basic element of accounting is you must use when the services or goods were used. If the item is for December, which is clear on an invoice, if it was purchased in December, if it was services for December, if it was a class in December, then it will go into the 2012 budget year, even if it's invoiced in 2013. And that is what the accountant does, and that is what's shown on this document.
It
So,
is not on here. Look at it. It does not say, I want a light item.
it is the date of the invoice, Mr.
Here, I'll
Fisher.
give you an example. Look at Fire Rescue Supply LLC. You see that one? 12/19/2012, correct?
Yes. Yes.
That's the date of the invoice.
Okay.
Do you know what Chief Buckles' notation says on that invoice?
And what does it say? It's for $75. What does it say?
It says 2013 budget.
Okay.
So which year is it going into?
So the $75 item is what you're focusing on that Mr.
I'm
Buchholz does.
I'm
Not the items of $109,000. Do you have any other examples?
I will give you all kinds of examples
Okay.
if you want,
Go
okay?
ahead. Give me another one.
There's a whole bunch of them. Look at the ones I have questions about. City of Waukesha,
Yes.
Fire Department, budget on that one, he's got 2013
City of
budget.
Waukesha is
Right.
not fire department.
I don't care, well, yes it is, the one I'm looking at, contracted services, it says that. Emergency medical products, I understand that one, I guess I'll ask you one, and you can argue it's not a significant sum of money. Made Enterprises, LLC.
Yes.
I'm not gonna vote to approve that one, it's only $120, and again, that's billed ahead, and I've
It's
gone
not
through that.
billed ahead.
It is absolutely, it was
It
billed
was January
It was
2nd.
billed 12/26/2012 for services not rendered.
But it wasn't
That's a heck of a good
processed,
question.
Mr. Fisher, until yesterday after
I'm not gonna argue.
No, wait a
with
minute.
you.
You're making statements that are
You
inaccurate.
asked me what I wanted to see on the changes to procedures. I want to see on this list that we're asked to approve of unpaid bills, whether it's coming out of the 2012 or 2013 budget. It's that simple.
And I will tell you that it's already on here. And it is the date of the invoice, Mr. Fisher. And the date is there. That's part of the accounting process
It is
and
not,
program.
if we get an invoice that is dated today, January 10th,
Yes.
10th, for services rendered last year, which
Yes.
budget are you putting it in?
2012.
Then it's not the date of the invoice.
Yes, because if you look very carefully, you'll see many dates that simply say 12/31/12. And so for any invoice that was dated in 2013, that was for services in 2012, we've listed that as 12/31/12, so that it goes into the 2012 budget years, and it is easily definable by the accounting format and for our auditors. I mean, we have a very specific process that we go through, Mr. Fisher. I don't know what you think we do in there, but it's very specific.
In the discussion, I'm asking that that be put on as an agenda item. You can decide whether you're going to do it or not, I guess.
I would really prefer that we have communication so we can answer your questions before we have to battle it out in a room like this. I mean, you were in the meeting yesterday, you were here looking at the bills, I was here. It would have been so simple for you to say to me, hey, I don't get this. How are we determining what's in 2012 and what 2013? But of course, you didn't ask that question. You simply came here to grandstand one more time. The fact is, it's being done properly, and if you simply ask a question, we can answer
I did not
that.
come here to grandstand. You pushed me to want to know what I want to talk about on the 24th of January.
Right, because you can't.
This meeting.
Really? We have to have a display board of what you want on the meeting on an item that you could have had a 2-second discussion on, and maybe we should hire a $250 an hour person to describe it to you rather than have someone else in our staff who works with us every day. If you're concerned about spending money, so am I. And we're not going to spend money unnecessarily. Please prepare the questions that you have for us. Any questions that we cannot answer here at the Town Hall office, we will surely get our professionals to answer, and we'll reduce our expense and get the answers for you. We'll move on at this point unless there's further discussion.
If you want to listen to the minutes of the last meeting, Mr. Fisher brought the same issue up and said then he wanted it on this paperwork. We're on QuickBooks. There's no reason we can't push one button on a computer and come up with a profit and loss versus actual, and that's what's in front of us here.
Mr. German, we do that regularly.
I have never seen it.
Oh, come on. Well,
I don't know what
maybe
you're
it's
doing
just
for
like
it.
the bills, you know, that you don't see because you don't bother coming in.
Angie,
Anytime.
I was in today.
Did you ask for it?
I was back there. I reviewed
And
it.
I noticed that there was not one signature of yours on the bills
I
today.
did not sign it because of
Oh.
the statement you made at the last board meeting.
Yeah.
When we approved these bills, we're
Yeah.
amending the budget by doing so. I'm not approving the bills.
Oh, you're not approving any more
No, I'm
bills?
not. It's not a budget amendment. And that's, you made the statement tonight and last meeting.
Oh, my goodness. Well, you guys gotta decide how you're handling yourselves. Mr. Fisher.
I'll answer your question.
Okay.
Back to my request for what I would like to see for a procedure is when bills are presented to the town board, I want to see next to the account number that is being withdrawn on, whether we are within the budgetary limits of that account. Each time we're asked to process bills. My request is going to be that the accountant, the clerk treasurer, the auditor, whoever is minding the store, does not present any bills to this board for authorization for approval at any time that exceed budgetary limits. They can be the gatekeeper, and when we're approaching those budgetary limits, I'm going to ask that they be duty-bound to come to the board to basically say, you need to make a budgetary limit. It is a budgetary amendment. It's ridiculous to have a legal budget of $150,000 and spend close to twice that much, and after the fact, wave a wand and say, let's just amend the budget to make it all right. If the four of you want to participate in that, be my guest. I'm not doing it anymore.
Let's just talk reality. We have a $3 million budget, okay? We are over on one line item, which we have reported on repeatedly, which we reported on to the entire group in the annual meeting, which we reported on very thoroughly by Mr. Vansky's presentation at the budget meeting. The entire plan of the statutes and the ordinances is to make sure that people aren't doing things behind the scenes. I cannot think of another topic other than our legal fees that have had as much play in the newspaper. I mean, if anybody thinks that, we're under budget on legal fees, they're under a rock. So the idea of the statutes is to be sure that the supervisors, are fully aware of the expenses. You folks approved each and every check that went out this door. So to say that you weren't aware and you didn't authorize the bills is untrue. There was not a budget amendment. That will take place soon, and we will be fully in compliance. So if you want to position yourselves that you don't want to pay our vendors, I guess that's your choice. But the fact is, in the last 2 years of this administration group, we have returned money to the Treasury, okay? Even with the additional fees and one line item being legal, we have still underspent by at least $200,000 and have returned money to the Treasury. And at the point in time that we no longer have these legal fees and these legal battles, we will hopefully return more to the Treasury. And that's really the story that I think people want to hear, that their taxes are going to be going down, not up. And to keep harping on legal fees when it's not even creating an issue or coming out of any kind of general fund, it's within our budget and below our budget, is again trying to skew the public. And it's just unfair. So the good news is we already in the town hall regularly review our budget to actual numbers. That's why we're aware where we are. That's why we made the report at the budget hearing, Mr. Fisher. And that's why we are confident of the position that we're in at any point in time. This organization, the town of Waukesha, never had that opportunity in the past. Never even close. And now we have a document that does that for us regularly. So we can prepare that for you. If you wish to see it, we're happy to do so. I've already instructed Jamie to have exactly that for you each and every week in anticipation of us rising to the next level of sophistication here. So I'm glad that that will be something that you will welcome.
Well, thank you very much for responding to my unreasonable requests. I really appreciate it.
Nobody has said anything about you being unreasonable. Again, missing the point, okay? So let's move on. Unless there's any further action on budget amendments. Last call.